All right, what's up, everybody? Come on into the Rooted in Progress Stream Center. We're back with more coverage on this Diddy trial. My goodness, it's been 4 weeks, Terrence.
Man, and it seems like it's been 4 months with this.
Well, technically it has, right? Because then it was like the charges and it was all of the, all of the accusations and all of the lawsuits. And then we had to wait for the trial to start. And now the trial is here.
Well, you have the jury selection that took place for a couple weeks. And then, now, the opening testimony for Cassie, lasted 3 days, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep, 3 days.
Yeah, so. Yeah. It's a lot to unpack.
It is. And hey, we are here. We got y'all back always. Y'all know Rooted in Progress is where you come to get everything you need to know, right? Your host, Deanne King, Terrence Middlebrooks in the building. And so we did something really interesting, right? And so with this case, it's a federal case, right? So everybody probably still upset about this, but the Diddy trial is not televised, where most people wanted, me and my friends, Terrence, had this thing on our calendar.
Yeah, really.
We were like, we want to watch it. Like, it was like OJ.
Exactly.
Right? And so we figured everybody was going to be all in watching this thing live.
Yeah.
Nope.
It is a little disappointing that and it's really somewhat hard to follow unless, everyone are somewhat like you who read the transcripts daily.
Every morning.
Yes. That's her own little novel that she's reading. Most people pull in, grab just books and read.
To stay up to date, but we got your back.
Deanne is reading the transcripts.
Yeah. And I think that what we wanted to do, and I'm reading these transcripts every day, and I'm like, we got to get this guy. So InnerCity Press, they're out of New York. Matthew Russell Lee, he's the co-founder of InnerCity Press, has been doing a fantastic job at reporting every little detail of what's been going on in that courtroom. He transcribes it daily, has been doing it. He is one of few. He is a rare court reporter inside looking at Diddy.
Yes.
Face to face. So what we did, as we all know, court typically happens in the morning, right? Today, I know it depends on when you're going to be listening to this podcast, but particularly today on June 5th, court doesn't start until 11 a.m., but it typically starts, right, Terrence, around like 9 or 9:30.
Right, exactly.
So what we did is we hung out and we chatted with Matthew Russell Lee when he left the courthouse yesterday and got caught up to date with everything you need to know about this Diddy trial. What did he look like? That outburst that happened, all the things. So take a listen and hear the very latest from court reporter inside of Diddy's trial, Matthew Russell Lee. Okay, so few reporters, right, actually are able to be inside of the courtroom. We have the man that I feel like the entire nation, maybe even internationally, might be following, Matthew R. Lee, co-founder of InnerCity Press, also an attorney. You have been going inside of this courtroom for the last 4 weeks. Let's just start with how you're feeling right now.
Sure, no, it's true. It's long. It's with the moment that they said that it might be shorter than 6 weeks, the government case, I was pretty happy about it because it's exciting. But then once you start doing it, there's a lot of expectation. You can't, and the way this trial has been, you can't really say, well, I'll skip that day. There have been trials that I've covered where there's been like, okay, this day is just going to be like technical stuff, but each time they've had either a victim or the male escorts so it's been I've been all in on it, and I'll frankly be whatever the outcome, I'll be somewhat happy when it's over. But I mean, it's not my life on the line, so but it is true that it can be kind of all consuming. I'm still actually trying to keep up with some of the other cases that I cover here. I just did something about the Luigi Mangione.
Wow.
The healthcare thing. That's in the same courthouse, so it's not impossible, but it's pretty much from like 8:30 to 3 or 4 o'clock. It's all Diddy all the time.
Let's start with the tone, right? So here we are, 4 weeks. You just got out of the courtroom. When you get into that space every day, what are the emotions like? What's the tone like from people? I'm talking about from the judge, from Diddy, to the people sitting in the pews in the courtroom.
It's surprising. I mean, I'll tell you, you wouldn't necessarily know it from outside, but it started off a lot more sort of acrimonious between the two legal teams. They've gotten to the point now where I guess it's just, they're both tired. So then to top it all off. So I've still played by the rules. I've never run her name. I didn't run her name.
So Mia is someone who they walked into the courtroom and you knew exactly who Mia was.
I'm not saying that by eye, but at the moment, and that's why I blame the prosecutors on their direct examination. They have, in order to show how she was related to Sean Combs, they had to describe all the different jobs she had in the company. And the internet is forever. Again, I'm not raising this to try to people. It's funny. I take it from both sides. I have readers that are like, why are you, withholding information from us? Which I take seriously, because I think you should be able to count. You don't want to be reading. You don't want a reporter to go to Congress and like not report what the other side is saying. Now it's different in a court, but it shouldn't be that different. On the other hand, I have people saying, "Here's what happened." I mean, that if I report something that's said in court, for example, where she worked, it's somehow doxing her. It's like I'm just reporting what's said in court. This is going to be in the transcript. So I think that there's going to be a second witness like this called Jane, and I think I've put in some filings in this case, and I'm thinking of doing one just to say they need to be much clearer, because it kind of makes not the media complicit. It's not the biggest thing, and I don't think no one that I know in the media has an interest in outing or doxing a victim. But you also, I'll be honest with you, there was a big fight around a video that was a birthday wish that Mia, the pseudonymous, had filmed and sent to Sean Combs. And the defense really wanted it in because they said it showed her demeanor being totally different than the way she came off during her testimony, which was very traumatized, extreme, right? And then, of course, and then we can argue whether the fact that you made a happy video means you can't be a victim later or have been a victim before. Right. That's a fine argument. But I, as a person covering the court, I think the people have a right to know what the jury sees. Right. Within reason. Now, they're going to see explicit sexual videos that are not going to be shown to us. And I think that's fine. I think we can all kind of imagine, unless you're living under a rock, you can sort of imagine what that is. Yeah. But I think this one, where it's more subtle, people had a right to, and then they showed it on the screen as an exhibit. So to me, then it can be, you can't have exhibits in a court case shown in open court and a reporter can't report on them. If you want to seal it, seal it. If you don't seal it, we're going to report on it. Yeah, and then we're subject, So sorry to go on. But
no, you're fine. So Matthew, you mentioned people are just using their imagination. Talk about the mood inside the courtroom, like the facial expressions, and even for yourself, is it hard, or how do you keep up with all trying to connect the dots?
It's tough.
Totally. It totally differs by who the witness is, right? I mean, during Cassie's multi-day testimony, I think it was a very somber. There wasn't a lot of laughs because you're going from like one violent incident to the next. She was a very compelling witness. I think it was very solemn. I think when there were two male escorts, one of whom was actually pitching a book. So that became that. I have to admit, I found that it doesn't mean he's not a credible witness. In fact, he came out of it. He's trying. If life gives you lemonade, such as testifying under subpoena in a sex trafficking case, and you're a male escort, you might as well try to sell a book. But they also had the stylist Deontay Nash. So it really has. It's changed day to day and even witness to witness.
Wow.
How the mood has been, and I think there's that, and then everyone's trying to read what does the jury think? I mean, I think today, and I don't know why the defense did this. Not to criticize their strategy, but at the beginning of the trial, they showed the famous hotel elevator, vestibule beating video. But now today they showed it again. They showed it for almost 2 hours, and in large part, it was because the defense is. I don't know what their strategy is. They're trying. I don't know if they're trying to say it didn't happen. They spent a long time, which I understand, prior to today, saying the video has been speeded up. It makes him seem more menacing than he really was. Honestly, almost everyone I talked to said, fast, slow. It is what it is. Yeah. The only question you're left with is whether beating someone that way is racketeering or not. But there's no question that it's like domestic violence. There's no question that he could have been arrested for assault that day. No. And so for some reason, the defense, and somebody said to me, maybe their strategy is to kind of desensitize, have the jury see this video so many times that
they don't feel
anything. It takes
anything.
The shock value.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess that we'll find out when they deliberate. But
that's right.
Personally, I thought it was foolish of them to do it.
Here is something that's been on my mind. What does Diddy
Right?
look like these days? I feel like when I go on social media, everyone wants to kind of know, because based off the sketches, it's not looking too good, Matthew.
Grandpa Diddy, but I think I think it's a studied look. Number one, people were saying he can't get hair dye, so his hair has gone white. There's no question. But he could have
Oh.
chosen, as many defendants do, to wear a suit. He could have probably gotten a good fitting suit and been kind of sharp. This is not the look that he's gone to. Even from the beginning, he's been going with kind of V-neck sweaters. The joke is it's kind of like Grandpa, Uncle Diddy or Grandpa Diddy. Like it's very hard to square this sort of friendly, honestly, white hair, a little white goatee, a V-neck sweater. It's very hard. It's like Urkel, like people were saying. It's very hard to square this with the previous image of Sean Combs.
So Matthew, you're thinking that his outfit is part of the defense strategy.
I think so. I think
have him coming off looking like Heathcliff Huxtable or something.
Number one, I'm pretty sure the MDC jail where he is, you can pretty much get anything. If you can get illegal cell phones and drugs, I'm sure you could get hair dye if you wanted it.
Yeah,
but more than that, he's the one who chose. When you ask for clothes, you can wear almost any clothes that you want. When you're in jail and you're brought into a federal trial like this, you decide. So I covered a trial of a far lesser known a rapper, a drill rapper here in New York called K-Flock, and he was in like a hooked up suit. He looked very professional. He obviously wanted to project not intimidation, but professional. Most defendants say if I'm in a suit, they're not going to think that I was like out doing these terrible things. I think the Sean Combs thing, he's like, if I look kind of harmless and like, gotten a lot older and kind of like I couldn't, it's a real contradiction between, how he looked at the time. Again, we haven't actually seen, other than that one video of him in the towel running around, there haven't been a lot of images yet. Although they're going to be showing, I guess, these sex tapes, and I think that's the one thing of them not showing. It's just we don't know, like, is he on camera? Is he off camera? Yeah, I'm sure you've followed the way these various things are described. I don't know how much the prosecution is really going to show, but people basically they've seen on screen Sean Combs wrapped in a towel kicking somebody, and then they see this very kind of gentle looking kind of over the hill guy at the defense table. And I think it is I think it's definitely part of the strategy.
Are there different mannerisms? Like, are the mannerisms giving Grandpa Diddy?
Yeah, totally. I think he comes off his mother's been there. He's gone out of he can be, usually it's out of the sight of the jury because they don't want somebody that blatantly being like, "Hi, Mom."
Yeah.
But he's managed to have some significant eye contact. There's no question that the jurors are aware that his family is there and that he has this support. And so it's all, and again, he has 10 lawyers. I mean, some people are trying to tell me 9. I look at the docket and I know some of them are not there every day. There were a few specialists. It's like a baseball team. They called in one guy just to cross-examine the Don Hughes, the expert, the coercion expert. And but they brought up these, we can get into that. These two, I cover the Southern District of New York a lot, so I know Mr. Agnifilo. I know the team that's been with him from the beginning. I know. I think it was very wise of them to bring in Brian Steele and especially this woman called Nicole Westmoreland. These are kick-ass cross-examiners. Like, I don't know if they do it different down in Georgia. I don't know what it is, but the New York people are kind of like they're playing this kind of Columbo, like they're going to somehow trick somebody, like, "Oh no, take your time. I just want to know what you think." Whereas, like, both Brian Steele and especially Nicole Westmoreland, they're just like, "Are you lying? Did you just lie?" And that seems you could turn off a jury, but I think if you're the defendant, if it's not your position that the witnesses against you are lying, you should plead guilty, right? The only way you can square what they're saying and you being not guilty is that they're lying. So. Why beat around the bush? That's my and it's sad they chose not to deploy Nicole Westmoreland against Cassie. I think they're going to live to regret that. I think they might have thought it was going to come off, but now they've had 3 days of. I mean, they could, if they want to, convict him on all of the charges just on her testimony. They don't need the escorts. They don't need. Maybe Jane is going to add to it, right? But.
That's the feeling you got after hearing Cassie Ventura's testimony.
Because all roads lead to. They could have done a totally different indictment of Sean Combs. I mean, I also follow the civil case. There's like 25 civil cases here.
Yeah.
Like she's not his only victim. There's victims long after she left. There's people saying that they went to a party with him in 2022 in Miami and were drugged and assaulted. So they could have done a whole. They've decided it's almost like the case was triggered by that video, and they built the case around that video and Cassie. So for the fact of the defense sort of beating around the bush with Cassie, they might really. I don't think Sean Combs can't say he has bad, ineffective assistance of counsel, but it was just a strategic decision.
So just help us out here. Help us out for those people who don't really follow law and understand that right now this trial, he is on trial for racketeering, correct?
And sex trafficking.
Right. And sex trafficking, not for the abuse charges or what we see in the video and anything like that.
That's not a federal crime.
It's not a federal crime.
Yeah.
Is it, or could it be possible that they come back later and charge him from the evidence they've seen from these videos and testimonies?
I don't know. I think that this is it for them. I think, there's such a concept as double jeopardy. Like this is, right. I don't think they're going to get a second bite at this apple. If he's found not guilty on these charges, it would be extremely cynical. Right? Maybe they could do like tax evasion, but to do on the same, if it involves the same quote nucleus of facts, there's no way they can do it. So, and also that would have been a state case. I think, I think it's a bold move to say that the entire bad boy revolt, the whole enterprise is a racketeer, is basically meant to back up the twisted desires of Sean Combs. And that's basically what they're trying to show. They're showing his security was with him, and after the beating in the hotel. This is where it does get into like the beating is a state crime, but going and bribing the people in the hotel to buy the video to avoid prosecution is extortion, which is a federal crime. So as they always say, the cover-up is worse than the crime. In this case, the cover-up is worse than the crime. Exactly. Oh, there's another good witness for you. The guy who said, I got $100,000 in cash in a brown paper bag directly from Sean Combs for the tape. All I can think is that in closing, they're going to say he was just trying to keep his reputation clean. He didn't think he would be prosecuted. He didn't think it was a crime. It wasn't about obstruction of justice. It was just spin.
But at some point, where's the objection from his defense to even allow that?
It was hard. They're objecting a lot. I'll be honest with you. I know I was criticized. I think the only decision I can really cut is the approach they took to cross-examining the main witness. They're objecting all the time, and they're winning some. They're definitely there have been things kept out. It just was impossible to keep this witness out because the witness it's not hearsay. He's saying you can cross-examine and tell me that he's lying. They actually didn't really cross-examine him because he says, right, he's the one that he got a call from this Christina Coram, who was his chief of staff, saying, Sean Combs really wants that video. And then he talked to Combs himself repeatedly on the phone. Supposedly, Sean Combs called him Eddie, my angel. You seem like a good guy. You can get the video. I'll take care of you. And ultimately, he gave him 100, according to him again. And I don't. They didn't really contest that. So I don't know. The only thing I'm thinking is rather than try to say the guy is lying, and maybe they knew that he could show where he put the money, they're going to try to say this is not what it appears. It's not obstruction of justice.
Yeah. What in 4 weeks, and I know you have to remain objective here, but talk about the strengths and the weaknesses. Who at this point in time do you think has a stronger case, the prosecution or the defense?
While remaining objective, I will tell you that the batting average of these prosecutors and federal prosecutors generally, but in this courthouse, is like over 95%. So I think it's as a journalist, you want things to be like 50-50. That doesn't mean that's going to be. There's always that one case, but they're out on a limb here. They're out on a limb here. I could definitely see. I don't think it's It wouldn't seem to me when they go to deliberate that the idea that this is a racketeering conspiracy is going to be obvious to everyone. I'm pretty sure you're going to have some outliers who say, wait a second, these are all terrible things in itself, but this was a record company. This is not the mafia.
Right.
This is not the Bloods or the Crips or Tren de Aragua. This is like a record company, and the founder of the record company went a bit off the rails, and he started making his girlfriend have sex with escorts, and he used the company's money and personnel to carry it off. And he was a violent guy, but that doesn't still add up to Bad Boy Records is the Gambino crime family. And I could see somebody thinking that.
So we have victim 2. So I know today, you wrapped up court today. Victim 2 is expected to take the stand tomorrow, right? As
Correct.
we're
And it's going to
actually
be
airing
like
this.
a week.
Do you have any idea on who Victim 2 is?
Oh, I don't. Even if I did, I think I'm. It's really there are a lot of threats there. Like I'm not supposed to even. Apparently, they can't stop. For example, I saw somebody today talking about academics and all of this. Like the court has no jurisdiction over social media, right? But they do claim they have jurisdiction over the people that are in the courtroom, and so they're. I'm very. It's weird to say. I'm not trying to say I'm censored, but I'm trying to say this is the difficulty that we're put into. It's not only to not portray the face of somebody. Apparently, you're not even supposed to put Google. Like, I mean, I don't really understand it, but
Are
I
you
know
going to
for a
be
fact
able to say whether this is like an A-list celebrity or this is, family or
supposedly, that's why I'm thinking of putting in a filing tonight. There's an argument between the prosecutors who don't want any speculation, who think that who they claim this is a very much of. I'll go off this is a feminist case, right? You have all six prosecutors are women. They're extremely strong on protecting the rights of victims. Every time something that seems to go the other way comes out, they spend a long time saying, "So why didn't you leave?" And they really. So I think that they feel very righteous trying to censor the media. And I will call it when I say this, for example, there was an incident yesterday where they said we saw an influencer. So they're distinguishing now between journalists and like the
influencers.
streamers,
Wow.
the outside people that are like ranting into their phone. But to me, if they're conveying real information,
Correct.
I don't care if it's their phone or a camera, right? To me, that's I don't know. They made this distinction. They said to the judge, somebody that was in here in the courtroom, we overheard them streaming with a stand and a phone the name of Mia. And we want you to make it, they can't come back into the courtroom.
Oh, wow.
And there wasn't a big outcry by the media to say that was wrong. Because the media is like, well, those guys are just streamers. We're ABC. This is just some joker with a phone on the stand. I'm like, I don't know. It seems like more people might be getting their coverage from the phone on the stand. I mean, all I mean is, I think that this bifurcation of the media and the quote influencers is a big mistake. I stay factual. The fact that I use Twitter or X to get it out, I don't think should change anything. But I don't think there's enough recognition if you allow them to start saying somebody speculating about the identity of the witness with a pseudonym, it can get you bounced from the courthouse. That's going to end up. Maybe they wouldn't do it to ABC or New York Times, but they could. I mean, there's no distinction. The Constitution doesn't give the press even any better right than the public. It's a public right to enter courthouses, and if you just let them chip away at the public, the press is going to be the next to suffer. Is my view.
Right.
Wow. Well, you've
So
actually.
I can't answer that.
Okay.
They're calling her Jane. I think it's Jane Doe, and I think I'll trust my influencer friends without these constraints. If it's a big celebrity, look. Oh, here's another thing. And this probably doesn't help me to say it, but it's been very funny to me because I put out all this information on it. Like all day, I'm like tweeting what's said.
Yeah.
It's going all over. Definitely, people from overseas are responding. I try to respond to comments. I think it's interesting. Then there's some kind of clickbait or AI sites that are like, Will Smith testified, or like, I don't know if you've seen these stories. Like people are writing to me and saying I should sue these websites that are trying to say, this is based on InnerCity Press's reporting. There was a crazy moment where Adam Sandler came into the courtroom.
Oh, wow.
So people write to me, and the best I can do is just to say, no, there was no Adam Sandler. No, Kamala Harris.
I saw that people have been falsely reporting things that
I know it's
under your name.
They could do it. I mean, my understanding is they could do. I had no idea that this level. I just defended influencers, so I don't want to start criticizing. I think some of these websites are just AI.
So why do you feel obligated to respond to let them know that's not facts, that's not true?
I feel it's not for legal reasons. I do it because I only do it when I have time, and I'm definitely not going to sue them because that would take too much time. But I think it's funny, and actually, I'll use this now. You'll see. I'll be as self-serving as everyone on this trial. I decided. So many people were asking me, "Is this real? Did you really tweet that? Did Adam Sandler and Kamala Harris come into the courtroom?" That I've been collecting my tweets and a bit of analysis in like PDF books at the end of each week.
Yeah.
And I'll say it's like a blockchain. If you want to know what I put, I can't answer every question, but if you want to know what I put out, you don't just have to look online where people can do a screenshot and Photoshop. They're on Google Play. I've done 3 in a row, and book 4 is already like halfway done. It's going to be like 2. I mean, it's a lot of. It's a lot of material, and I throw in some extra stuff, but I don't feel a need to do it. I
Yeah.
had never been aware that this stuff existed out there, and I think it's beyond this trial, and it's certainly beyond me. It's everyone's been talking about. Watch in future presidential elections. Everyone has said you're going to have like a fake video of a candidate, admitting murder like the night before the election. It's getting very tricky. It's getting. I mean,
Yeah.
these websites, anyone within, if you look at it, it says right on it. This is to protect themselves legally. They're like, this is entertainment, and none of this is true. Of course, that's underneath the screw. It's deep. You have to like click to read more to see like this is all lies.
It's insane, but I'm glad from two journalists to another, I am glad that you are sticking up for yourself. We are in the fourth week of this trial. What is the most memorable thing that has happened in that courtroom thus far?
I have to, as much as I'd like to say Deontay Nash's incredibly sassy performance, it's been Cassie. The trial, it has been Cassie and Diddy, and I think some of her descriptions of things that happened and the sort of very, very, very dignified way she did it has been, to me, the heart of the trial. There have been other big moments, that's not a single moment. I'm sorry to have to put it that way, but it's not. Yeah. They did a very good job getting her story out, and I don't think the defense did a very good job trying to discredit it. I mean, you hate to see a witness, but if somebody's facing multiple years, you're supposed to put they didn't really. With every other witness, they've tried to say you're just in it for the money. Maybe they think the jury will just intuit that, but they didn't drive the point home. I think because the video is, it just goes to show you a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's really, that thing was the thing that put an end to an empire that had built up all the way back to Biggie Smalls, and it's just too much. It all fell apart.
What about the heckler? What
about the heckler? There are supporters.
Like,
I actually find it. I mean, I think that personally, she said she burst out. She's been there. She's been talking a lot of stuff outside on the street, but she hasn't done it in the courtroom. But this was after they talked about the influencer in Foley Square mentioning Mia's name and they shouldn't come into the courtroom. She said, Diddy, they're screw. So I think that set her off because there's a whole little community. Now, there's other people saying that some of these guys are getting paid $20 an hour outside. I don't think she's a true believer. And things happen. People get emotional. So I don't.
Was this her first time in the courtroom?
No, she's been in there, right?
She's usually been the overflow, but she gets up there. She gets around. It wasn't as unexpected as not because she's totally unstable. It was pretty, to my mind, it was out what the judge was doing and what the prosecutors were doing, saying, I overheard somebody in the street. I think they were giving the name of Mia. Therefore, we should give our names to the guards so they can't come into the courtroom. I think it's an outrage. So I'm ready. Yeah. I'm going to write a story about it. I'm going to, I don't like that. I think the courthouse has to remain open pretty much to anyone. You can dictate behavior, but you really shouldn't. There's not a VIP list. Yeah. And I'm glad that some members of the public can be in the courtroom. This is what makes America America. It's a public courtroom. Right. It's not just for the.
You answered my next question, because that's what I was going to ask. Is like, well, how is it that just the public can actually get into this high profile?
It's just a matter of getting there. Because they set aside some seats for the press and some seats for the public. And if you get in line, I covered the Donald Trump criminal case. People were getting there at like 4 a.m.
Wow. I mean, what time are people lining up?
Oh, some people are there at midnight. You'll see these tents, but some of the people that are in line are not going in. They're there to sell the spot. Did you know? These are called line sitters.
Did say that.
There's a company called the Line Dudes. These guys did it at the Trump trial too. In fact, these guys are so sophisticated, it makes you think that they're running the line, because I got there for the Trump trial around 6 a.m. I'm like, they're like, hey, what's up? Let me take your name down. I'm like, who are you? They're like, we're the Line Dudes. I was like, this doesn't look like the government to me. Like, I know that we're like, with a president with a red hat.
A couple guys on Shark Tank.
So you get to walk in and you have a designated seat every day.
Yeah, if you're the big media, I'm there because I cover the court all the time. So I'm an in-house. I can go through without. So I don't mean.
How
to brag,
close are you to Diddy?
I can be pretty as close as I want to be, which is not very close. Yeah. just joking. It's not. Here's marshals. He has marshals sitting behind him. There's no press member that's like within spitting distance, unless you really can. Let one loose. Wow. It's not as good, to be honest with you. You're more. Yeah. You can. It's incredible. I was at the Trump trial. You're like 20 feet away from this, bulking guy.
Let's backtrack to. I just want to know about Diddy's mannerisms. Like, what's his facial
Sure.
expression? What's his body? Is he responsive to any of the evidence that's being
He's
showed?
talking a lot to his lawyers. He likes. There's this one lawyer, Xavier Donaldson. He talks to a lot. He talks to Nicole. He talks to Brian Steele. He's very active. I would say he's very much participating in his defense. He takes notes when people are talking. He shows the notes to the people before they do the cross-examination. But he doesn't. He doesn't want to come off, and he doesn't come off as the control freak that it seems that he totally is. Like for all those years, all the stories have been like he's dictating like what the hair is going to be, what the shoes are going to, everything. In this one, he's kind of like, hey, I'm here. They're trying to now meet with him late at night because he's going to have a lot of it, as somebody's testifying. He's like, she's lying. I didn't dangle her off the balcony. It was more like,
yeah, and that all of that.
He's
took
coming
place
off though. But if
today.
you didn't know, if you weren't listening to the testimony, you'd say, what's this nice old guy on trial for? Must be some like used car thing, or
Do you think Diddy will take the stand?
No, I don't. But I certainly hope it would make it. That would make the trial, and I think it would also, not just for news value. I think it would be great. It would be great if people felt that they could tell their side of the story without it being, that they're going to be cross-examined for 4 days, and that then they're going to think that they lost for that reason. They probably were. I mean, like I said, 95% of these federal defendants are going to lose at trial. That's just the reality. But only a few of them realize that and are so. Have such strong egos that they say, I can do it. I can be the one guy I'm going to talk my way out of this one. There was a guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, the head of FTX, the crypto.
Yeah.
He did it. That's the last guy I saw. And he did it, and he still was convicted. And I definitely think he would have been convicted, I think, even if he hadn't testified. But I think he got 25 years instead of like 15 because he testified. Because the judge, you got to remember that the judge is going to sentence somebody I'm not saying he's going to be convicted, but if he's convicted, and the judge. The problem with testifying is that you're committing perjury. If you did it, there's no way to talk your way out of it without lying. And if the jury, after you talk, says all the facts are true, it allows the judge to say, you're not only guilty of the crimes charged, you're also guilty of perjury and a mockery of the court. And it's almost always that's what happened to Sam Bankman-Fried. He might still get a pardon, though. And that's the other elephant in the room.
Can we please dissect this and talk about it? Like, what's really going on with this potential looming thing about pardons? What are you hearing?
I watched the Oval Office thing, and I said, Trump, is open to it. That's how I interpret it. Now, maybe I'm wrong. He could have easily shut it down. He could have said, no. I don't go there. He said, I'll take a look at it. And then he went back to it at the end of his answer and said, I don't care if somebody supports me or not. If I think they were treated unfairly, I'll pardon them. And he did recently pardon some Democratic guy in Cincinnati that was never a supporter of Republicans. So I think he's hype. I think this would give him, on a bad news day where tariffs are going badly, it's a no-brainer.
How is this affecting?
I don't know.
How is this affecting the prosecution?
It's not
with this because
we don't see anything. No one has dared bring it up to them. It's so depressing. It must be very depressing to them.
Yeah.
To think,
it definitely has.
People said that about Menendez, and it didn't happen either. So
yeah,
it's just a thing that no one can. It's like it's like, will there be a hurricane? Like nobody. You can't really.
You can't really say.
Trump did say that he has a relationship with Diddy. Diddy likes him.
Yeah, he thought he did, and then he said he turned against me.
You didn't hear him say
heard
that.
Some nasty things in the newspaper. So.
Well, you didn't hear him say that about the Menendez brothers, or there was no relationship there.
No, it's true. He was a New York guy. I mean, the photo. Not only there's photos. Donald Trump was a nightclub. He was a Manhattan nightclub guy.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, Diddy was. So it was inevitable they'd be in the same place. And the way I view it is that he's. It's not just for it's for hype value, right? Some of these, I don't know why he pardoned those reality TV people. Who knows? It always gives him like he likes to be in the news, and what could be more newsy than saving Diddy? And it's like he was Aesop Rocky. He has a history of trying to show I'm down with the community, so I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised.
So where do we go from here? How long do you think this trial is going to be? When will the defense be able to bring their witnesses to the stand?
I guess they are saying now at the end of not this week or next week, but the week after that should be the defense week. This is the one thing I want to say is they're acting like it's going to be a 2-week defense case. Again, I've covered enough of these trials to tell you that's rarely. It's rarely it would be incredible if they had a 2-week defense. Most defenses, they talk a good game. We're getting ready. You got to give us time. We've got witnesses. And then it comes and they have like one witness
Yeah.
Oh.
and one chart. Because it's very hard. When you put up a defense witness, the prosecution gets to tear them apart just the way this lady
Yeah.
today was torn apart. And they have more stuff because your people are criminals. So, I mean, unless you can
What about his family? You think his family might testify?
they can't, but they're not, it's irrelevant. It's not, there's a federal rule of evidence saying you can't, there's no such thing as like character evidence. You could do at sentencing, they could write a letter and they could say, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
I don't know where he went wrong. He used to be such a mentor to people. He lost his way. That's how the way I read this, and I've tried to remind myself because everything in the current, he looks really bad. He was always hard driving, but at one time I'm watching these days. I'll give it a little plug. There's a Netflix has a Biggie Smalls documentary, and it's not about Sean Combs. It's about Biggie Smalls, but it has him like praising him, and he was something. He was doing something, and obviously like power corrupts and money corrupts. Something happened. And he just went totally off the rails. It seems to me like I'm not saying that it's a crime to go off the rails, but it's pretty much unconscious. Not just the kicking video, just everything he was doing. I don't know, but it's not. Again, it's not like their defense is going to be. It's not a crime to be a little freaky.
Yeah.
But freaky and violent and obstruction of justice and burning up Kid Cudi's car, it added up.
Kid
but,
Cudi.
Cars do burn.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, he was good.
Yes, when I was reading your transcript,
he was a great witness.
I was like, Kid Cudi was cutting up on that stand.
Totally. No, he spoke really well. He was an excellent witness, and I think in part it's because they brought in this guy Brian Steele who just won this rap trial down in Georgia.
Yep.
I think Brian Steele went particularly soft, kind of friendly. I mean, I'm not saying he did it. He probably you can't say Kid Cudi is lying. It's basically just like who burned his car.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't say that they absolutely prove that it's Sean Combs either.
Right.
I mean, I think that's what's weird about that charge, right? You go around and around. There's a Molotov cocktail. It's an Old English bar. It's not his DNA. It's a female DNA. They don't know whose DNA it is. It seems pretty clear it's him, but it doesn't. I don't know if that's beyond the shadow of a doubt. And anyway, that he's not charged with arson. They're just trying to like paint a picture. Like, yes, the mafia uses arson. Check it out. Bad Boy Records uses arson. But did they? But he was a good witness. I agree.
Okay.
That took things up a notch.
So you think we have what, at least 6 more weeks to go?
I think less. I would say less. The 4th of July is the judge has said we're done. High as your eye by the 4th of July, and I believe he's going to try to get them. He's going to try to get them deliberating a good 4 or 5 days before the 4th of July.
Really?
I mean, he can't really control things, but just go and look at other cases and see how long defense cases usually are. They're usually like a day, sometimes less. So
what about
maybe this one is different, but I don't think so.
What are I know you can't, I know no one on the jury is talking, right? But from what you see on a daily basis, what do you think, how long are we talking about?
I think it'll be. You never can. I mean, I'm not a tea reliever, but I wouldn't be surprised because of the RICO charge. If this was an open and shut, did you move people for sex across straight lines? Like he's going to probably lose that charge because he did. It's a crime, and he bought the tickets and he said let's have jewels, and he flew him from New York to Los Angeles, and whether people think that interstate prostitution should be legal or not, it meets the definition of the crime. But I think the RICO thing could definitely take 3, 4. Who knows? You just never know with this. Like what happens is after about 3 or they say I'll be covering it too. It will all be locked down because the jury sends out notes. We want to see the video again. We want to read back of Kid Cudi's testimony. But whenever one jury has a question, they get the evidence. And then eventually sometimes they'll send out a note and say we reached decisions on 2 charges, but we can't on the 3rd. And then the judge issues what's called an Allen charge. They say, go back, take one last chance. And the defense is always like, don't tell them that, because then they think like the 11 often it's 11 for and 1 against. They're going to like pressure the person. But, that's what's happened in other cases. I would be shocked if it's definitely a multi-day deliberation. I think they even realize it would look kind of shabby to sit for 6 weeks and then be like, yeah, guilty. Wow. Even if they felt it, they're going to say, "Let's go through the evidence." They don't want to be known as
they're gonna have to process negligent. Plus they get
of the testimony. 3 lunches. Everyone else. The one thing I can predict is that the verdict will probably come out on a Friday. This is what always happens. Is like there's a lot of questions, and then people are like, I can't tell you. I would say more than 50. Friday is only one of 5 possible days for a jury verdict. but it's more than 50% of the trials that I've covered.
Wow.
Because they just get, you go, if you start, I've seen where they start on Friday and they end on Friday. I'm not saying that people are lazy. I'm just saying it focuses the mind.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, lots to unpack here. This was such great insight, Matthew. We appreciate you taking the time out to let us know what the last 4 weeks of your life has been. I know
it seems like it feels really compressed, right? You really haven't done it justice. No, it's been fun. It's we'll see what happens. And then there's of course the if it's guilty, the after verdict, as we discussed. So this is a story that won't end anytime soon, and it's an American tragedy, one way or another.
Yeah,
Matthew, tell us real quick. Tell the people that are listening and how we can follow you and stay in touch with your coverage.
Totally. I probably the most read of it is on X at InnerCity Press, all one word.
Okay.
I was getting so many replies that I had to like shut them off for a while because the threads were breaking. But there's a lot of people are following it that way. I also put it up on Blue Sky if people are politically against the whole X platform. I try to do it there as well. Threads doesn't work as well. I'll say that. It doesn't. You can't thread on thread, ironically. But I also innercitypress.com is the website. And on both of those places, if people are interested in this trial, they're $4.99 a piece, $49.99 a week. You get the whole coverage. And I work to put it out usually the same day. I'm going to try. Friday this week is going to be difficult.
Your stuff comes out.
It's fun. I'm looking forward to when it's over. You're going to see me taking advantage of the beaches of New York.
Well, and then we can expect a book later, right?
Yeah, exactly. These are the first draft, as they say. It's the first draft of history,
Well, Matthew, we will stay in touch. We'd love to reconnect with you toward the end of this trial, get a full debrief of everything that happened. So we appreciate the work that you are doing. Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely.
Sure, no problem.
My goodness. It's so much literally to break down. And I think Matthew did such a phenomenal job on really capturing the essence of what court looks like, right?
Yes, absolutely. And to bring that to life. I mean, I know people are disappointed because of the fact this trial is not being televised. However, Matthew has just given us a play-by-play.
He is. Let's start with what Diddy looked like, because that was one of the key things I wanted to know. Like, is he really gray? And the fact that he said that he's giving like Grandpa Diddy, it really puts into perspective of what this man who we've known to look like, always dressed to the nines, always. I mean, you got to think Diddy is also a mogul in fashion, right? So to hear that he's walking up in court with gray hair, gray goatee, and V-neck sweaters, button-up shirts. I'm getting the Mr. Rogers vibe. Yeah. Grandpa Diddy is hilarious. Yeah, that was very interesting to hear Matthew talk about. Another thing I think, Terrence, for me, was the whole censorship conversation piece of it, because when you think about the lady and we find out what really was the background on why that lady had the huge outburst and got kicked out of court the other day, really stemmed from the fact that people are having a hard time grasping what's going on and what can be let out. So the pseudonyms, right? For folks who might not know what that is, that's, for example, Mia. Who we know Mia to be is a former assistant of Diddy, right? But we technically don't know her real name. Her true name. However, in the reporting of the transcripts, right? Matthew, for example, is reporting what the prosecution and the defense are asking. And in their line of questioning, it was, so have you worked for X for this amount of time? Yeah. Okay. And then have you also worked for whatever? So all of these things are somewhat identifying a classified witness. Yeah. That's tough. It is. And it's hard as a reporter to report that, you know, because he did mention in the interview that he has to be careful. He has to be careful who he names and reporting on these names. They're not only watching what takes place, what's going on outside, but they're watching also these reporters and how they report. Yeah. So he said that. He did. He said basically, when you go into a courtroom, right, it's open to the public. Yes. However, he said what happens on social media, the court cannot control what happens on social media, but the court is controlling what happens in that courtroom. Exactly. And that includes the reporters who are able to, like Matthew, have a phone, have a laptop, and do the live tweeting and all of that. So I could only imagine the feeling of feeling like you're being censored when you are a member of the media. That's tough. It is difficult. Tough because, you know, there is such thing as freedom of the press. Right. And where does that stand in the court of law? Right. You know, inside of a courtroom of law. So
It's, you know, and again, Matthew gave a great example of play-by-play and all that he's doing. We talked about just going out, following Matthew, Twitter, InnerCity Press. He's doing a phenomenal job. And Deanne, I'm going to tell you like this. I have not yet read the transcripts. You are,
listen,
you are on top of it.
The transcripts are there. Well, really, because that's all we have, right?
Yeah.
So like that's all we have. Thankfully, we have Rooted in Progress that we were able to get Matthew, but that's really all we have. And I think when you look at even what Matthew is doing behind closed doors, Matthew is submitting documents for the docket, advocating for media and for the press and for more information, because a lot of the evidence in this case, excuse me, is being concealed.
Yeah.
And Matthew is submitting and filing paperwork in court, advocating for us to get more of that evidence, not because we're nosy and we want to be nasty and all of those things, but really just so that, okay, are we reporting all of the facts? Are we reporting everything involved in this case, not picking and choosing what we want to be public or not?
Yes. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, that interview, just listening to him was exhausting. So,
I'm going through all of our comments, which we appreciate everybody listening, tuning in, because we know this is something that a lot of folks are keeping their eyes on. And I think the pardons, we see a lot of people commenting like, well, President Trump is just going to pardon him in general. And we heard Matthew talk about that interview with President Trump and what he didn't say no. No. He didn't say no. And you asked an amazing question, Terrence, on like, what do you think this does to the prosecution? Yeah. They're doing all this work, fighting tooth and nail, working this case. And let's just say he's convicted just to then get pardoned.
Yeah. You know, and the prosecution, I doubt if they're paying attention to the media. Of course, I don't believe
they probably don't have time to.
Yeah. I don't believe they can, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably.
So I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know that those boundaries they have. However, if word even got out, like, yo, that's a possibility. Like, think about again, I use the word exhausting. Think about how exhausting that would be, going through all of this, sitting through all these testimonies and working hard, trying to find justice for Cassie and these other victims. Yeah. Only to be pardoned by President Trump.
So we'll see what happens with that. We did wrap with Matthew getting a sense of what he's thinking as far as how much longer we have to go. So we're 4 weeks in. He thinks that the prosecution will wrap up within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then the defense will take over. Now that was interesting when he talked about typically what happens with defense teams. Defense teams will be like, oh, we need all this time. We're working to grab all these witnesses, and we're developing this huge strategy. And then they come out and they don't have nobody. Yeah. This will be very interesting to see who the defense brings to the table on their behalf.
Well, and also the fact that he mentioned that the judge is wanting to wrap this up
by July 4th.
That's 3 weeks.
That's 3 weeks.
That's a little less than a month as of yesterday.
Let me look. Yeah, okay, you're right.
Today is June 5th.
Yep.
So we're looking
4 weeks. Yeah.
Less than 30 days. So he also mentioned that the defense could possibly, spend about a week or two doing their calling their witnesses. But then you also got to think about deliberation with the jury.
Correct. And how long it'll take
for them
to even reach a verdict. Will they reach a verdict?
Yes.
It's
a lot to unpack, man. It's a lot to pay attention to, for sure. Please.
So we will keep y'all up to date, locked and loaded on all of the information. Matthew will be back with us. We're going to check in with him when everything wraps, when both the prosecution and the defense rests. And then, of course, we'll check in with him once that verdict has been reached. So we will keep you all abreast of all things that's going on, the progress of this Diddy's trial. This is really having a huge impact, I think, on our culture just in general, because Diddy is such a mogul, particularly in the Black community, right? And so it's hard to see someone who you, for example, Terrence, grew up with, admiring, watching, probably dressing after.
You calling me old?
No, but I'm putting into perspective
I was.
like
100%.
who this man is to a lot of us, and to a lot of people. So, this is, we got all the tea from Matthew.
We did.
Well, make sure y'all follow us, Rooted in Progress. We can follow and watch all of our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We are live every single Thursday, y'all, 9:30 in the morning. We're live via the WFLA Facebook page. You can just go to WFLA on Facebook, click the little icon there, and watch us live. But we're also live on the WFLA app. Download our WFLA app. We'll send you a push notification when our episode is live, and you can click it and watch us there. And then, of course, be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Y'all, please be safe.
Yes.
Again, follow Matthew, seriously, at InnerCity Press, and he will have a transcript and have all the info y'all need, literally minute-to-minute updates on this trial.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Again, not only you can watch us live, you can always go back and watch these episodes. So please do like and share. Everyone stay rooted.
Stay rooted.